At this time, I'll call the Budget Committee meeting to order and ask Angela to call roll.
Cole. Here. Hannum.
Here.
Lewis. Here. Mitchell.
Here.
Moon. Here. We have a quorum.
Now I'll ask.
Before we get started, let me read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you have reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles.
I'll now ask if there's any public input on items on the agenda. Yes, come on up.
Thank you. I'm Linda King with Citizens for Blount County's Future. You're here to vote on a tax increase for the citizens of your community, or should I say against the citizens of your community. Before a tax increase shouldn't even be considered, you need to ask the department heads to cut their budgets. Our government is acting much like Washington, D.C. They want the homeowners to cut their spending budgets, but keep asking for more and more to fulfill the government requests. How about having the county employees pay for their health care benefits and retirement packages similar to those in the private sector? How about cutting the number of county vehicles? How about cutting employees from a department when the jobs are bid out to a contracting firm? You may think that the people are stupid or have a short memory, but you just raised our sales tax by insisting that it would solve our monetary problems. You got the folks to vote for the raise, thinking that it would eliminate the chance of a property tax increase. Some of you on this committee are well aware of the problems that a property tax increase or wheel tax will have on your neighbors. Ms. Hannum knows how hard it is to pay for the tax each year, and she's not the only one who struggled. Commissioner Cole works in the private industry, and he knows it's necessary to live within revenue. Being in the banking business, Commissioner Lewis has seen a number of foreclosures on homes. It's not right for our local government to insist that the people keep reaching into their pockets while the government spends and asks for more each year. When will enough be enough? Looking at your spending habits over the last 13 years, I'd say that you'll never learn to spend within revenue. And no, revenue is not the problem. Spending is.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on items? Yes, sir, Mr. Scott.
Yeah, Dick Scott, District 10. Just a very quick comment about the previous speaker. She's the head of the Blount Counties for the Future and so forth. Sounds to me like the only future she's looking for is to bankrupt this county. Okay, certainly. Taxpayers have to fund the government. Okay, she fails to acknowledge that at one time the tax base in this county was higher than it is now. It's the commission that cut it back to where it is now. Okay, and that's all I wanted to say, that the future of this county lays in your hands. And I, for one, I'm a taxpayer, I'm a property owner. I would hope that what comes out of this commission is a property tax increase. Do I like paying it? No. Will I pay it? Yes. Because I know, in my opinion, and I've followed the county for the 15 years I've been here, okay, that if we don't fund government, and that includes the schools, the sheriff's department, the other departments, and so forth. Okay, and we all know as time goes by, the years go by, costs go up. They can't remain the same. You can't kick the can down the road again because it's all rusty, it's all broken up, and the road's at a dead end. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Jim.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Jim Hinkle, District 10. I've been attending these meetings now for right at 10 years. And I've watched us continually, as my friend said, kick that can down the road. Well, that old can's getting rusty and the road's getting mighty short. We've got to realize our county employees are the backbone of this county. And they, in my opinion, they have been mistreated for years in regard to their pay and their benefits. It is time that we stand up and do what's right. If we'd done this in small increments back years ago, we wouldn't be faced with what we're faced with today. It's a disgrace to see our sheriff's department have to operate the way it does in trying to find people and keep people from going to other agencies because they can go make $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 or more. Let's step up to the plate and hit one out of the park for the employees of this county like we should do. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on items on the agenda? Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Commission, Mr. Mayor, thank you for allowing me this brief moment to speak before the ruling body of the Blount County government. I do believe by my very appearance, it's obvious to you what my concern is. I'm here to ask you all to consider the reasonable request for a funding increase for a pay raise at the Sheriff's Office. After having lost 18 brothers and sisters in blue from our great agency to other agencies or other careers in general, nearly all because of pay, I ask that you help us stop the bleeding. We may be able to find other people to fill the uniforms, to take a seat in a cruiser and answer calls, but there's one big thing that can't be replaced. That big thing is experience. I know that I'm only one little cog in a very big wheel at 940 East Lamar Alexander Parkway, but please allow me to give you an intimate view into my own personal budget. Since coming to the Sheriff's Office 3.5 years ago, my pay has decreased from my first check to its current status by nearly $175 a month, due in part to pension and retirement funds, Bush tax cuts expiring, insurance rates increasing, etc. While net pay continues to shrink, cost of living continues to rise at an alarming rate. For instance, we hardly buy any pork or beef products in my own home because the cost won't fit our monthly budget. When the 26 pay scale starts, this will have an immediate impact on our budgets due to the net pay continuing to shrink. If we are asked to foot the insurance budget shortfall, something that wasn't any of ours fault, it could push our monthly income down nearly $350 a month less than it was 3 years ago. You can only operate so long like this before there's nothing left. The synopsis of the Evergreen study and a quick look at how we are bleeding employees to other agencies and companies show that not funding the request will only continue to hurt the agency, put us behind all other counties, surrounding counties with 1/3 the revenue that pay their deputies considerably more, and in the long run, simply put, it will hurt our county. I understand that the county is in a financial crisis, and as a citizen of this county, I would like to work to the end to see a successful resolution to return us to a surplus and pay off our debt, but not funding a reasonable pay increase is not the answer to budgetary shortfalls. I do legitimately hurt to see that we are in a situation where we're operating from a deficit, but so are nearly 300 families who haven't had a cost of living increase in several years. Not being able to make ends meet because we're not even able to keep up with the cost of living hurts on many levels. It hurts morale. It hurts us financially. Some of my fellow deputies have had to take out payday advance loans to buy food or pay the electric bill. It hurts our home lives. It takes us away from our families because we have to work overtime or second, and in some cases, third jobs to make ends meet. As is the case with some of my partners at the Sheriff's Office, my life has never been about money, but it does take money to survive. We aren't asking for a raise so we can go out and buy bass boats and four-wheelers. We're asking for a raise so we can make a reasonable living comparable to our surrounding agencies. Please do this so we don't have to be a drain on our community by going on assistance programs, which is the next step for many of us. We have personally cut and sacrificed as much as we can. I know I can speak for all of my fellow officers. We love being public servants, and we love Blount County. I count it an honor to serve the people here. And while I pray to God it never happens, I would gladly lay down my life for the citizens of this beautiful place I call home. God bless Blount County. Thank you.
Does anyone else like to speak on items on the agenda? Come on.
My name is Darren Gallo. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I worked for another agency, say about 10 years ago. I made more then than I do now. Okay, I went back on active duty, retired, came out here, work at the sheriff's office. There's no reason for that, period.
Hi, I'm Jamie Daly, 10th District. I know each and one of you have a horrendous job ahead of you. I hope that you will be very diligent when you're studying the budget and be fair to everyone. I know there's so many different departments and it's so complicated, but I hope you do search your hearts and do what is right for everyone. That's it.
Yes, in the back.
My name is Ernest Ragland from the 1st District. Since I was 18 years old, I joined the military, and I've spent my entire life in service to my country, my community, and its people, and continue to do so through the sheriff's office. I feel like I just want to give back to the community that gave so much to me. And being a young man, I don't have many things that I can call my own as of now. I don't want a fancy truck, a house on the lake, or a boat. The pay raise isn't just the chance to allow me to get a home and start a family. It's more than a pay raise. It's a chance to start a life. Thank you.
Does there anyone else have anything they'd like to speak on items on the agenda? Come up.
Good evening. I'm Pamela Speed. I'm a volunteer with the Sheriff's Office in the Senior Outreach Division. And I just want you to look out among you and see the experience that fills the majority of the seats in this room. That experience is worth more than you can ever imagine. For example, if one of your homes is caught in a burglary, do you not want the best to retrieve your mother's wedding ring now that she's gone? Or your father's shotgun? If you leave it to inexperienced individuals, you may lessen that opportunity to get those things recovered. Plus, the amount of money that it will cost each time you lose one of these experienced, trained individuals, whether it be in the sheriff's office or in government, period. When you have to retrain that individual to replace that person, you've lost an enormous amount. And Blount County deserves more than that. We're a great county. We deserve the best. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Harry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was with the 9th District, Harry Grothjohn. I gave you a question 2 weeks ago when I was here and gave you the backup data from the U.S. Census Bureau's Quick Facts for Blount County that detailed the fact that the average per capita income, the average worker in Blount County makes less than $24,000 a year. A week or two ago, the 2015 payroll for Blount County analysis done by Commissioner Monroe showed us that 42 of the 68 pages were of people who made more than $24,000 a year. Beyond the $24,000 a year of those 2/3 of the county employees make, they also get paid $8,000 a year health benefits paid for by the taxpayers who make less than an average of $24,000 a year. Now, I too want to have the best government services we can possibly have, and I think they ought to be rewarded better than anybody in that job is doing. But I also recognize that we have some problems that we aren't dealing with in this budget you've put together. For instance, we're losing $3 million a year through the health benefit plan that's now in place that you all just learned about 2 weeks ago. And I learned today that the CONUS program will be operational with HR department in the middle of July. And they're planning to do what the federal government requires them to do, and that is do an annual enrollment in October. I suggest you submit a budget, Mr. Mayor, that would allow this $3 million negative cash flow in your employee benefits plan to be solved as a part of your budget. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
My name's Tom Hatcher. I live in the 9th District, and I want to talk to you tonight as a citizen, not as a circuit court clerk. You know, I've been to a lot of commission meetings and a lot of budget meetings over the last 30 years that I've been involved in county government. And I keep hearing people get up here and talk about county employees this, and county employees and that. You know, the thing that they forget, that these folks that wear these uniforms, the folks that work in the court system, folks that work in the mayor's office, they pay taxes too. And none of us like to pay taxes, but we want to make sure that we give the best service that we can to this county. That's what the people out there expect. And I look to you tonight, Budget Committee, and ask you to make that move and fund this budget and fund the raises so that we can provide the service to the citizens that they've expected over the last 30 years that I've been here. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? Yes, Mr. Caskey, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Grady Caskey, District 8. It may be useful to know the history of how we got to where we are today. A review of the history of county budgeting practices over the past decade or so reveals the inconsistency in the budget and what led to this budget can being kicked to our feet. If one were to chart on graph paper, I'm assuming we still use that, the tax rate and distribution of the penny, it would be more akin to a drawing of the mountains than a chart of consistent budgeting. For example, the tax rate in 2003 was $2.15. Then it jumped to $2.43 for a couple of years, then dropped sharply to $2.18. Next year it rose to $2.23 for 3 years, and then dropped down to $2.04. The next year it rose to $2.15 again, where it is today and where it began 12 years ago. General county funding was 78 cents in 04, then 79 cents the next year. Following that, the rate fell to 72 cents, then up to 77 for a few years, only to drop to 66 in 11 and 12. Then it jumped back up to 73 for a couple of years, now back down to where it is now. Education didn't fare any better. In 04, it was 121, then lost a penny to 120. Next year, it dropped drastically to 95 cents, where it remained for 4 years. In 2011, it rose to $1, but then lost a penny the following year, then back to $1.08 the next year. Last year, a penny was taken away from education, leaving it at 107 where it is today. Debt service ranged from a low of 38 cents to a high of 51 cents for a few years. It has since dropped to the current rate. My point is, Mr. Chairman, we cannot expect service providers to provide a consistent level of service to the public unless we are willing to provide a consistent level of funding for those services. As far as the insurance request goes, I'm continuing to research this claim, and so far I can't substantiate the claims made by CBIZ or the HR department. The monthly financial reports we received does not provide any hard evidence that supports the claim that we're losing $255,000 per month in claims. We are told that we are in dire straits with the fund balance, but if you look at the state audit report, it showed $8.5 million in fund balance, of which $5.6 million was the health fund. I would encourage you to allow the HRA Insurance Committee to be given time to thoroughly investigate the insurance matter before asking the public to provide additional funding for benefits based on an unproven assumption. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone else that...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jared Millsaps, District 3. I hear the term average has been brought up in several of these meetings, that we have average employees, an average wage in our county. First of all, I think I can attest that these deputies and our employees back here are not average people. They don't make average benefits, and they don't get paid an average salary. I'll give you a couple examples of that. In our corrections division, who is locked up behind those closed doors with the murder and rapists that law enforcement put behind the bars? Those officers. Are they average? No, they're above average, because it's been a calling that they're here and the reason why they're here. Just a recent event that I think everyone's familiar with the fatality that happened last week with 6 lives in our area. Who was there but public servants like these deputies are here. So I just wanted to just mention real quick that these folks are not average, and they deserve a better cost of living and a better wage. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that has anything? Items on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item D is approval of the minutes. The minutes are in your packet that need approval. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Declare the motion passed. Item E, increase, decrease. Increase decreases E1A, juvenile court, YSO, supplemental funds.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we send this forward.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussions? I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole. Hannum.
Yes.
Lewis. Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Item E1B, Highway Fund 131, fourth quarter adjustments to reduce the use of fund balance. Do I have a motion to put this on the floor? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, can somebody clarify when you say the use of fund balance? Is this not in the current budget process?
Mr. Dunlap's here. I believe he can clarify that.
Be able to use some recycling material that we have sold, some items, and pull that away from the fund balance item that we was using. That's all it is. It's housekeeping items, all it is, Tom. We had budgeted for the fund balance, so this will take place of that fund balance. Okay.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, have any other questions or discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Yes.
Hannum.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
E1C, School Fund 141, surcharge for school department share of underfunded workers' comp fund. Do I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Okay.
Again, Mr. Chairman, can someone explain this
Troy?
item?
Rob?
We're asking to pay for the
charge out of our current fund balance and not budget it forward into this current budget cycle. So it's coming out of our fund balance. Board's approved that, by the way, to send over to you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
The Director of Schools, what would be the net effect of the fund balance for Blount County Schools after this transaction? Won't put us anywhere close to our statutory minimum. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, we're well within that, sir. I can't remember the exact number, though.
That's all. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussion? Thank you, Rob. I'll now ask for a roll call vote.
Cole. Hannum. Lewis. Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon. Motion passes.
Item E1D, Debt Fund 151, 2015A and 2015B refinancing. Randy? Taylor?
So, as you know, we, as of March, closed the refinancing of the E3B bonds into two different series, 215A and 215B. All this budget increase does is account for that in our revenue and expense lines per the auditor. So it's nothing you haven't seen before. It just accounts for it appropriately.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we send this forward.
You have a motion to send it forward. Do I have a second?
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, while we're on this, there is a reduction in debt service fund balance as part of this transaction.
Yes.
And that is for what purpose?
That was to cover part of the issuance costs.
And the taxable portion of this year's accrued interest? Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Do I have a motion? In a second? Okay. All right. I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Cole. Hannum. Lewis. Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon. Motion passes.
Moving on to item F, 1A, litter grant, Tennessee Department of Transportation, which pays a portion of the Sheriff's Office expenses for the litter crew cleaning roadside. Do I have a motion to put it on the floor? Have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole. Hannum. Lewis. Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon. Motion passes.
Item F1B, this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to apply on behalf of the Blount County upon the approval and execute contracts documents signifying acceptance of this grant. Do I have a motion to put it on the floor? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole. Hannum. Lewis. Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon. Motion passes.
Item F2A, the tax rate in excess of the certified tax rate resolution. Randy, will you?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll make a motion to send this forward.
Okay. Have a second. Have a motion and a second. Now for questions and discussion. Randy? Randy?
This resolution is required as a part of the reappraisal process in the event that there is a need to increase the property tax rate beyond what the certified rate is. As I stated at our last workshop, in my professional judgment, you would need this for at least two reasons. One, the state law doesn't allow us to round up from $2.1177 to 2.12 without declaring that as an increase in the certified tax rate. So on that measure alone, I think it's warranted to pass the resolution. Secondly, I think the fact that our debt service goes up as a result of the refinancing on its own merit would precipitate an increase in the property tax rate. And then the third reason under the statute, this is a requirement to at least have public discussion on the certified tax rate as well as any prospective tax rate that you might want to set that is higher than that. You are not setting a rate, you're only declaring the intent that that is likely to increase.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, in section 1, and I've given a call to the budget manager today, it says a tax rate in excess of the certified tax rate is hereby levied. I hope the language will be adjusted to where it says is the intent of the county legislative body.
We actually have the
levy a tax.
revised language that we can show on the screen if John will pull it up.
Thank you.
The language that Commissioner Moon is referencing, as you can see, we've noted this is revised. We had the county attorney review this actually less than a couple hours ago, so that's why we didn't have it in the packet corrected. The highlighted area in section 1, we are proposing that be changed to it is hereby intended for Blount County to implement a tax rate in excess of the certified tax rate. So we would request that this be the version that you vote on and forward on to the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion or questions? I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Cole. Hannum. Lewis. Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item F2B, tax rate resolution, current proposed. I'll ask for a motion to get it on the floor. Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Randy, you want to explain this?
Yes, you're not at this point prepared to make a recommendation that at least I'm aware of. You have two outcomes that, in addition to the one you just acted on, that we need from this body tonight. One is to set a tax rate that funds a budget for next year, fiscal 15-16. And this tax rate resolution is a draft. It has the current rates and how they're apportioned out among the different funds. And then secondly, you'll see a second column there that talks about proposed rate. As you make motions and seconds and we get votes on items, that's the column that we will actually change so that you can see what it is now and what you might propose it go to. The next item, if I may move to it, the appropriation resolution, is the second piece of business that you need to act on tonight to complete your responsibility of recommending a budget for fiscal 15-16 to the full commission. The structure is very similar. It is the adopted budget that this body recommended a year ago, and then you'll see on the right-hand side a proposed column. It has appropriations by department and by fund. My suggestion would be to maintain order and so that we can keep up with what's going on, that we talk about things on a department basis and or a fund basis and not a grand total. And Angelie has things set up to where as we get changes, if there's something that we're not prepared for, she can plug that into the formula and we can come up with whatever your motion is. There are a couple, three things I'd like to clarify before we get too much further. First off, primarily for our audience, there is no budget right now for next year. That is this body's task. And as you hear the deliberations, it will be merely recommendations of what goes on to the full commission. So right now, there is no proposed 15-16 budget. We've had a series of workshops, a lot of data collection, a whole lot of conversation, and the task tonight is to get a recommendation that will go to the full commission. Secondly, this body, North County Commission, voted for a sales tax increase. The voters of Blount County voted for the sales tax increase. Just want to make sure everybody understands that. State law is very clear. No elected body can vote for that. It's the voters that vote for that. Third, part of the deficit that you will see tonight in our general fund, which is Fund 101, and that's the primary operating fund of county government outside of the general purpose school fund. Part of that deficit is attributed to action 2 years ago by County Commission to shift 9 cents from general county to the education fund. It's not deficit spending, just to make sure everybody understands that. And the last thing I'd like to remind folks, services are provided in local government because citizens request them. We talk about how you fund things, and nobody has a distaste for taxes any more than I do. But the reality is the way you pay for public services are through user fees and taxes. That's the only options we have available to us under state law. Now, part of those taxes and user fees, as I've stated in a couple of our workshops, county governments basically have 3 sources of revenue that can deal with any major funding issues. 1 is the property tax, 2 is the sales tax, and that's not an option for Blount County because we have that set at the highest rate now permissible under law, and the 3rd is a wheel tax. So when you use comparisons for different counties and Blount County, make sure that you're comparing apples to oranges, or apples to apples, as may be your preference. And then with respect to, and you'll hear more about this as we get into the conversation tonight, the assumptions that are made on health care, we are looking at our health care needs a year from now. We're not looking at what happened last year. When you take a view of fund balance is a snapshot for something that happened yesterday, unless we're projecting it into the future. So just kind of keep that in mind. My suggestion, we've got 3 or 4, hold on. We've got some minor changes that, we've got some things I'd like to note and draw to your attention. You want to pull that spreadsheet up? Some issues that have changed since our meeting last week to bring it up to current, just so that before you make decisions or recommendations that at least we'll have accurate data. As you can see, and I apologize again to those in the viewing audience, register deeds, they have an employee that's had a life-changing event that warrants them changing their health care. They will now need dependent health care, and we have incorporated that because of the policy. That's what we've done for our incumbent employees. So that appropriation would increase $6,600. The action you just took on the juvenile court to approve the receipt of a grant from the state, we have built that into next year's proposed budget in anticipation that this body and county commission would approve it for the current year. And that's $9,000. The third item is yet more information that's not positive on the health fund. Because of our claims experience and the size of some of those claims, the quotes we've received, the informal quotes we've received from the current provider of our stopgap or reinsurance policy is that we're looking at a significant premium increase of $190,000 on that premium. Our broker will be and has solicited proposals from other insurers in that market. Those are not due back in for 2 weeks. So I'm giving you the most current information. I don't anticipate it being an increase over this additional $190,000, but that takes that premium to, I believe, $862.
Yes.
Right-hand column, halfway down, the top line under expenses, so called employee insurance dash health, that $862,000 is the proposed premium based on information we received Friday afternoon. And then, what's this one?
the 5382, the reduction of the insurance, dependent insurance, was that juvenile court? From 4 to 3?
Which department was it?
From 4 employees with dependent coverage, or with coverage to 3.
This one. And then we had, in drug court, we've had a $5,382 adjustment due to a reduction in persons who needed insurance. It was originally budgeted at 4, and we only have need for 3 now. And all of the spreadsheets that you'll be working off of have reflected those changes. So at this time, my suggestion is that the appropriate place to start would be on the appropriations side to determine what the spending plan might be before you arrive at a funding mechanism.
Okay, right now we've got the tax rate resolution on the tape on the floor. Let's go. Huh? Yeah, motion in a second. We need to go ahead and do a roll call vote on that.
Well, you don't have a recommendation. You just got it on the floor.
Okay, for discussion. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I move that we set debt services at .48 for the 15-16 year. 48 cents. Debt service, account 151. Section 1 of the resolution, General County General Purpose Schools debt service. I'm making a motion to set that at .48, which is an increase of 6 pennies.
Okay, do we need to vote on these each one separately?
That would be acceptable. And I'm assuming that the 6-cent increase is a reflection of the increase in debt service in Fund 151 of $1.7 million. What the audience should be looking at is the spreadsheet that reflects the revenues and the expenses for Debt Service Fund 151.
That should adequately. Need a second.
We have a motion to set debt service at .48. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, it actually works out to about 5.4 pennies, but with the refunding coming up in the next year, the planning that we'll be doing, it would appear to be prudent at .06 cents or 6 pennies increase.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I need a second? Oh, Luce, okay, go ahead. Any other discussion? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm struggling with voting on these penny by penny versus where everybody can understand where we're going with any proposed tax increases, that we throw them out there one at a time but vote on them as a package.
So rather than vote on them individually, vote on them as a total package? Is that what you're talking about, Sharon?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Considering a couple of other options that have to be looked at, I don't really see how we can do it as a package, because I'm planning on making another motion for Count 141, general purpose schools, which will be fairly complicated. So that's why if we take them one at a time, then especially when we get to general county and issues with general county that we heard a number of people speak at the podium tonight, it's going to be difficult to do them as a package, in my opinion.
I'm okay either way. I'm easy to get along most of the time.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just need a little bit of clarification. So we're voting on this motion for the proposed debt service, but when this goes to the full commission, we're voting to send it to full commission.
Yes.
If commission turns that down, can the commission come up with that proposed amount, or has it got to come back to the budget committee?
No, commission at that time can come up with the proposed amount. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ready for a roll call vote?
Cole? Hannum?
Yes.
Lewis? Mitchell?
Yes.
Moon?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Well, depends on what the next motion is.
You want?
How would you, to me, the debt service is the obvious one. How do you want to proceed now? Because if you go back to the spreadsheet where we've got the different funding shortfalls, that's why I would suggest maybe now it would be appropriate to look at the appropriations so that you can start sizing whatever your desire is on the other two components or others that you may want to add. And let me just say this, so if there's a desire to discuss a wheel tax, your action that you have already declared can be dealt with depending on what you want to do, if anything, on a wheel tax. So you've not excluded or prevented yourself from having that conversation or action for that matter.
You want to say something? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would just kind of like to make some comments about the wheel tax and my personal feelings regarding a wheel tax. In my opinion, it would be a little more fair to institute a wheel tax so that the cost is spread across the county more equitably without all of the constraints falling upon property tax owners. I believe that we could decrease the amount needed by instituting a wheel tax and make it easier on property taxpayers. Nothing's easy about either one, and I don't suggest that it is. I don't suggest that it goes down easily, but there is no doubt that we're going to have to take some steps on this evening that's not going to make 100% of the people happy. I won't be happy either, but I would support a wheel tax being part of any recommendation that we make.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, did I hear a motion to that effect? Or?
before anybody makes a motion, let me give you some procedural things that need to be considered. In discussing with our county attorney how this would have to be structured so that we don't conflict with any other section of the law, the recommendation that I have for you is you ought to set the property tax rate, the levy, and embed, if the desire of this body is to request county commission consider a wheel tax, a separate resolution for a wheel tax has to be drafted and placed on the agenda for tomorrow night for that purpose. And there are samples of those out there, so it's not like we have to reinvent the wheel. But in the property tax resolution, we would include language that the intent of this body, the budget committee, is that once you set the property tax rate, the county commission be requested to adopt a wheel tax resolution and roll property taxes back some 22 cents or whatever the number is in the event it passes. But that would be embedded in the property tax resolution. Now, the reason for that is under state law, all counties have to have their levy finalized. You can make no amendments to the tax levy beyond the first Monday of October, which is when taxes become due and payable. So you can't do anything outside of that. So that was the suggestion, that the tax levy be set at whatever the need is that this body deems. And if you consider a wheel tax, that the language in the tax levy be modified to include your intent, which I would assume would be to reduce the property tax rate in the event the county commission adopted a wheel tax resolution on 2 consecutive votes.
So that brings us back to the levy to discuss that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm new at this, so what I'm trying to understand is, in my mind, it seems like we need to make a proposal on the budget that we want to send to full commission, then come back to the wheel tax or property tax. But I'm missing something, or I'm not understanding correctly?
That's certainly one way to do it.
Well, I would like to make a motion to send a budget to the full commission based on 14-15 fiscal year appropriations that were approved, plus adding the debt service and the what we're calling special items or shaded items, plus the evergreen for the sheriff's department.
You making that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Here I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay. That fails for lack of a second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move that we insert after highway capital projects, the appropriation budget, the item educational capital project account 177, place $2,222,500 in that item.
Okay. That's a motion to put 7 cents into that capital item.
That's correct.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? The motion fails for lack of a second. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we include the debt service, the items in General Fund 101, including Evergreen, supplemental items that are shaded, and to take care of the deficit in the HR funding.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Can you repeat back what all the ones that she just said, please?
To take care of debt service, the 101 fund shortfall with Evergreen, the shaded additional request items, and the health fund shortage.
Everybody understand that? Have a motion and a second. I'll ask for a roll call vote on that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, before the vote, if you could recognize Mr. Vineyard, and that's a big bite right there, and let's digest that bite before we go on, so we know exactly what this is going to.
You need to know the pennies. You want the pennies?
Pennies would work, yes, or total.
Randy, can you give us the pennies on that?
All right. The first item is debt service, and we're talking about appropriations right now. That's the motion as I understand it. So to appropriate money, the motion includes funding debt service, which would include on the screen the additional 1.767147 that it would take to balance the debt service fund, and that would take approximately 6 cents. The second item in reference to shaded items are those 6 or so supplemental requests that we've called them shaded items, and those would be an increase of $356,355. And the majority of that addresses the recovery court, and that would take an additional 2 cents. And then to balance the general fund, including Evergreen, would be $7,033,296, and that would take 23 cents. So the budget, as the work papers as presented to you that included Evergreen, did not include the shaded items, which is why they're listed separately, but that would total, both of those items affect the tax levy for general government. So in total, they would be 25 cents. Now, on the health insurance, what we shared with you last week, I'm going to flip to that side.
Which one is it?
Health insurance, the detail on it. And that was included in the motion, is that correct? Yes. So the health fund would be appropriations total $21,481,552. So right now we have a funding shortfall, including the information I just gave you on our reinsurance premium, $3,359,558. And again, this addresses, as of right now, what we have been told by our broker on what we can expect the trend to look like for claims for next year. This does not take into consideration any action that the HR Insurance Committee would propose. You were previously given information, as was the HR Committee, that under the Affordable Care Act, as an employer, we are somewhat limited in what we can do to change our employees and their health care. There has to be a 60-day notice given, and then basically you have to go through an open enrollment process. So if you give 60 days, then by the time commission considers a budget, which is sometime in June, then 60 days puts you into August, and then we would traditionally be doing an open enrollment in October anyway. So practically speaking, I don't see any benefit to putting our employees through 2 open enrollment processes within a 60-day time frame. That makes no sense to me. So part of what the HR Committee's responsibilities will be is to determine the premium structures, plan designs, whatever. This body, we're making you aware that we have a funding need, no matter how things are addressed. So the maker of the motion is proposing that we fund that $3.3 million shortfall. I'll go to the slide on the where the expenses apportion. And just for on the percentages. Go to the one that allocates how the premium, not the premiums, but the claims are allocated between general county schools and whatever. Right now, that $3 million in blue, $3,359,000, if you look at how the claims fall based on the source or origin of the claims, in General County Fund 101, 30.16% of those claims are attributed to General County, or about a little over $1 million. In the school funds, 65.84% of those claims, or about $2.2 million, would be attributed to education. The highway fund is about 2.76%, or $92,000, and the library 1.24%, or about $41,000 attributed to the library. So there has to be some apportioning there between the funds. And the maker of the motion and the second are fine, but before you set a tax rate, we would want to determine how those monies are to be allocated. So I'm just giving you a little advance notice. We probably need to deal with that on the tax levy resolution.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Vineyard, approximately 11 cents, take care of that item with 6.5 or 7 cents going to education and 5 to general county.
Well, since education would be split dollars, it takes 12-cent increase to address that, and then 4 cents on general county. And that's the 2 green lines that are showing on the screen. Health Insurance Fund 264. I have a suggestion when we get to it on the tax, how you might want to handle that, but it's your prerogative. But at least if I've understood the motion and the second, what I've described on the appropriations covers each of those items as I understand the motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I guess I just want to make a comment, and My concern point is if we appropriate the money for the 3.3 million, how much incentive is there in the HR committee to come up with a resolution? My concern, and I guess I'm just voicing my concern out loud, is that if we've already appropriated the money, there's not a big incentive to pass some of that cost on to the employees.
I appreciate you asking that question. We need to show you something. To your point, we're not trying to tie any other committee's hands. We're merely trying to make sure, because we only have one shot to set a tax rate. I can't anticipate when the HR committee would actually act. They've got a sizable charge in front of them. What we did is, if you want to do this, then we would put the expense in the general county under other general services.
Yes, it's here. Other general administrative.
The highlighted area, other general administrative services, line 5, account 51900. You can see the increase from 1.922 million to 5.4 million. We would propose appropriating the money there, and then once the HR committee has made a recommendation, we would come back to this body to determine how that flows through any operating budget. So there are no operating budgets that are increasing based on your action. The general fund is increasing, and then this body would come back and appropriate it based on what the HR committee does. And then that would go to the full commission. What page are you on?
54 of the packet, but we wouldn't be looking at the additional supplemental request, general county and schools.
Yes, that's what we've been showing on the screen. The only change there is on the health care, the additional $190,000. So to summarize, we would be funding the general fund. Pull up your spreadsheet that has the total of those two items in it, and we'll read that into the record. The total of the two general counties, the 7 million and the 356.
You have to take out the additional. That's got all of it in there.
What to general county? Is that at 47,745?
Well, that's with all supplemental. Yeah. And then you would add the 7033.
Okay, so the changes, you would be approving, if you approve this motion, general county budget including Evergreen of $47,745,556 plus the $7,033,296 and the shaded items, which were $356,355. That would be the general county appropriation, Fund 101.
What was that total? What was that total again?
I'm not got a calculator on me, just so you get one. It's 47,745,556 plus 7,389,651. Those two numbers right there. The 47, 745,556. 7,389,651. So general county budget would be, appropriation would be 55,135,207. That's Fund 101. And that would, in your packet, that would be under the appropriation resolution on page 23 in your packet on the total general fund. The number on your screen for the current year that was adopted is 44,563,793. So to the right of that, the motion, if approved, would be 55,135,207.
I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing 47.
So that doesn't address that.
The other item that would change if you'll continue down that page, debt service appropriation is on page scroll up to it just so. Debt service total would be on page 24. It's currently $15,921,658. The maker of the motion, if that is approved, it would become $17,832,512. And then we have to apportion that in the appropriate accounts that are listed above.
Randy, as I go over these with you, will you tell me if I'm seeing this exactly the way I should? The need to balance the Fund 101, including Evergreen, is 23 cents, correct?
So we have to add that to this. So that's another 3 million. Okay. I'm sorry. Yes. 23 cents would be, 25 cents would be the need in the general fund. It's 2 cents for the shaded items plus 23.
I'm just going to balance 101, right? Let's do it one at a time.
Okay.
Okay, fund balance is 101 is 23 cents, correct?
We need 25.
Okay, including the shaded areas, okay, 25. I was trying to break it down here. Okay, we've already done the 6 cents we've put into the debt service.
We need 25 cents to balance the general fund and fund Evergreen and fund the supplemental requests.
25 cents.
25 cents.
You need an additional 16 cents on health fund, correct?
And then we would need to add, my suggestion is add it to the general fund to address the health care so that it could be put in the other general administrative account for future appropriation by this body based on what the HR committee does. So we've not addressed the technicality of where to put the health fund yet, because we don't budget internal service funds in county government. I'm giving you a budget because we load that in our financial system.
But when we're on this tax levy, when we're delegating those pennies for health care services, is it not going to go in 101? Yeah, and then
what I'm suggesting is that you would do the library portion, the school portion, and the was it in that number? All of it in the general fund, just to get it funded, a source of funding. Then once the HR committee decides how they're going to address the health care, we would come back to you with that recommendation and say that money needs to be transferred to X, Y, or Z.
Okay.
So if the desire is to fund the health care shortfall in the general fund, we will need 16 more cents. So you will need 23 plus 2 plus 16.
So 41 cents.
In the general county to address Evergreen, the use of fund balance, the recovery court, and health care. And then the debt service is taken care of separately because you've already acted on the funding of that. We now have the appropriation on the board.
So in the tax levy, to meet what we're needing to do here, that 66 cents would become $1.07, correct?
The current levy is 66, and you would need 41 cents, so that would be $1.07, yes.
Okay.
Have I given you all you need to explain the details of the recommendation on the motion? I'm going to give you a revised number on the general fund then. So we've got 55 million. $135,207, which covers Evergreen and Recovery Court and the deficit in the general fund. Now, if you add the health care and address all the health care in the general fund to be apportioned at a later date, we increase that by 3.3 million, and the new general fund appropriation is what?
It's up there.
58,494, 765. $58,494,765. then that's the number that would go in on page 23 on total general fund.
Mr. Chairman, the point that Randy brought up, this is also making whole, this is not using fund balance, which has been the case for a number of years. So we're starting out 3.5 million, 3.8 million behind the curve before we sat down tonight.
That's correct. That was the reference I made to the commission 2 years ago adopting and shifting 9 cents from general county to education.
So do I need to do anything else with my motion?
No, ma'am. You got a motion and a second on the floor. Are there any other questions to explain or clarify anything on the motion? I'll shut up.
Can you check my math? Can you convert that to pennies? 58.
Was the whole thing? A little over 184. Is that what you mean? The whole thing? The whole total?
1.8423.
Yes.
If I'm reading this right, it's looking at a 41 cent on general county. Am I reading that right?
Yes. And then you've already addressed the funding of the debt service on your action on the tax levy. You just now are setting, this motion sets the appropriation for it.
Randy, this will, in this budget, eliminate the need to use fund balance at all, correct?
That is correct. There is no proposed use of fund balance if you approve this motion.
Good.
So putting this in penny terms, what Ms. Hannum has on the motion and the second, it would come to, would change general county to $1.07?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's right.
So with general county and debt service, those two, as proposed, would be $1.55.
$1.07 for general county and 48 for debt service.
155. Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this? Okay, we're voting on the general county proposal. Ms. Hannum? We have a motion and a second. I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Cole. Hannum.
Yes.
Lewis. Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Now moving on to general purpose schools.
Can I make a suggestion before you do that?
Yes.
Since Commissioner Lewis brought it up, I think at this time it'd be appropriate, since you've set the appropriations, probably makes sense to go and consider general county right now, since you've set the appropriation, and now you probably need to set the tax levy for that. I mean, it's your prerogative. Then that way we will have buttoned down general county and debt service, both on the funding side and on the appropriation side.
Mr. Chairman, I move $1.07 for account 101, general county.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Cole. Hannum.
Yes.
Lewis. Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Motion passes. See it. It's a little. Just the amounts. Remember I sent you that article, so you think it's okay to do that? I know, it was making. Or you want it broken out that way? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move $1.07 for account 141, general county school budget.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I know there was an additional request this year in lieu of the fact that we're going to be looking at $2,086,000 in additional health care expenditures in account 141, and that's for this year. I believe that's correct. That's to catch us up.
Actually addresses all of next year. We will be consuming fund balance
Until
in the
then,
current.
but
Yes.
that'll have to be replaced. And that's my reasoning for making the motion as the same funding as this current year at $1.07. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Cole. Hannum.
Yes.
Lewis. Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
If I might, let me suggest that one thing we may consider after the HR committee acts, depending on the outcome of their action, we may want to set, and you would have that prerogative later, set a line item in there to address specifically the healthcare issues if their action warrants that. So you might actually have 2 additional lines on your tax levy, potentially. That's just a range of options, and some of that would depend on the timing of their actions.
Next up, item F2C, appropriation resolution. Randy?
All right, so we have set now on page 23, we've set the general fund, and what I would propose doing is just reading off of the spreadsheets into the record each of these individual appropriations that literally just come off the spreadsheet, or if you want us to just replicate for the resolution that gets printed, we can do that, but it'll come right off the spreadsheets that made up what you all have already approved. We would do that by department, by fund, and complete this resolution and incorporate in the packet for County Commission tomorrow night. It will be there for information only because County Commission doesn't. That merely is our action to start the public process of Commission's deliberation, and then Commission will not consider it until its June meeting. And we will have the public hearing, which will be conducted by this body at your meeting in June, on June 8th. The publication of the budget will be done on the 22nd of May, and we have to have it to the newspaper by noon on the 20th. But I'm prepared to read those in if you like, or we can complete it. You've satisfied your requirement of setting the fund totals by virtue of the spreadsheets that we've provided you. What's your pleasure?
Go ahead and step through the tax rate resolution and then just take them in order. We're going to fill in $7, $7, $48,
It's your preference. We will do what you want. I just don't want to make sure that, I want to make sure there's no slippage here about what's intended by this body.
We've taken action on both resolutions, so it's
Yes.
really good.
All right, so we will transpose the information off the spreadsheets that are in your packet onto this resolution and have it included in County Commission's packet tomorrow night.
Okay. That's still an item we need to go ahead and do a roll call vote on for that.
Yes,
that understanding.
I would feel better if that's the case.
It's an item on the agenda. Let's go ahead and do the roll call vote on that.
Go ahead. You ready for the vote? Cole? Hannum?
Yes.
Lewis? Mitchell?
Yes.
Moon?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Here, Randy. Item F2D, the Budget Committee Workshop presentation.
All right. I need to go back to one item before we leave it. Is there any,
Pull up the resolution, the language on the tax rate resolution for the real tax.
I mentioned this language earlier, and I don't want us to leave the tax levy until you all have, at least I've made you aware of it. And so if there is a desire to consider a wheel tax, we have drafted some language in a, scroll up to the top of the page. So this is the revised tax rate resolution. So on the proposed column right now, your action is we would have a general county tax rate of 1.07, a general purpose school fund 1.07, debt service of 48 cents for a total of $2.62. If you desire to consider requesting commission consider a wheel tax, you could incorporate, if you'll scroll to the next page, please. You could incorporate this section 6, be it further resolved that it is the desire of the Budget Committee for the Commission to adopt a wheel tax of $50 per motorized vehicle and $25 per motorcycle to fund debt service. In the event that the Commission passes such wheel tax, the property tax rate would be reduced by a comparable amount up to 22 cents, dependent upon implementation date of the wheel tax. However, all property tax rates are required to be final no later than the first Monday in October. That's the reference I made earlier, and I at least wanted you to see that in print so that you would know what I was trying to describe. And if you wanted to do that, a wheel tax resolution would need to be introduced tomorrow night as a recommendation by this body if this is the course you wanted to pursue. And if not, that's fine too. I'm just making you aware that that would be the way you would handle it.
So what you're saying is the $2.62 would go to $2.40 if the wheel tax was implemented.
That is precisely correct.
Which takes quite a bit of the burden off of the property owner. Yes,
I make a motion to adopt the language.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Yes.
Just want to be clear, this body is directing the commission to put forward a resolution to levy a wheel tax. That's the motion on the floor.
Does this body have that authority to do a recommendation, or
Well, if you're adopting this language, common sense tells me we need to prepare a wheel tax resolution, which is what has to be considered by county commission. But if this is your direction, that we would draft a wheel tax resolution and have it in the packet tomorrow night.
Okay. Everybody understand that? I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole. Hannum.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Moon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
If I might, let me show you, I probably should have shown you this first. We pull some data together on, I think it would be informative on wheel tax and the distribution of who pays things. A property tax, as I indicated earlier, is borne by everybody that owns property in the county, whether it be residential, personal, or public utility, or commercial. Now go to the whole, the analysis you did on the, yeah. We reported to you at our last meeting that once you take out the piece of business that's conducted with the rental vehicles, we would have 157,000 vehicles based on the clerk's office information they provided us. If you assumed that every household had 2 vehicles, that means you'd have roughly 78,500 households. If you look at our tax levy, our tax rolls, the information from the assessor's office, there are only 59,520 residential properties in Blount County. So you could assume that there are almost 19,000 households by virtue of how many vehicles we have registered in this county that aren't paying property tax directly. Could be rental properties, who knows? If you extrapolate a $50 wheel tax or apply a $50 wheel tax to those 19,000 people, there's almost $1.9 million worth of tax burden that gets shifted from property taxpayers to owners of vehicles.
Assuming 2 vehicles per household. Just assuming 2 vehicles per household.
Yeah, and that is assuming 2 vehicles. And that is not an out-of-line assumption given the data that we collected from the state motor vehicle files. So I just wanted you to have benefit of that. And then look at the sample residential. If you look at the mean of how property taxes fall on property values on residential, $150,000 house, there's almost as many property values above that as there are below that. So $150,000 home value is kind of the norm, if you will. And if you look at right now, that $150,000 house is paying about $106.25 a year. And if you assume that we just worked up different property tax assumptions, so based on what you've adopted thus far, that tax bill would go with a $2.62 tax increase would go from $806.25 to $982.50, a total of $176.25 a year, or $14.69 a month. And that's strictly for illustration purposes, but that would be something that property owners could utilize to calculate what their proposed tax burden might be.
Randy, that is with the full brunt of the deficit and the property tax going to the property tax without a wheel tax.
That is correct.
And back to Ms. Hamm's point earlier, for those county residents who do not own property but do own a vehicle, we're kind of all in this together, and from an equity standpoint, it seems quite unfair to ask the property owner in and of themselves to shoulder that entire burden. And so for those who do not own property but do own a vehicle, this is certainly a way for everyone to share in the cost to fix the issue. Thank you.
Okay, right now we're voting on this presentation for the Budget Committee workshop presentation being forwarded on to the commission, correct?
This would actually only go as information only. It's
Okay.
not an actionable item.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, item G, the finance report, that was for information only. And I'll ask if there's any input on items not on the agenda. Yes.
I just want to make a couple of comments that might be helpful to the county and the Board of Commissioners. Give you a little background. In my career, I was the chairman of Board of Trustees of Taft-Hartley Trust Fund for health insurance covering 5,000 people. I also was a trustee to a much larger trust fund in Washington, D.C. We had an occasion in the trust fund in Washington where, to make a long story short, the Board of Trustees determined that our consultant and actuaries were, for lack of a better word, what's the word I wanted? I'm sorry. Malfeasance of office. We sued Martin Siegel Company, which is the largest consultant actuary firm in the United States. I would hope, I would hope that our committee members on the county's trust fund have insurance coverage for errors and omissions. If they don't, they should have. We did sue a Martin Siegel Company for malfeasance of office, similar to what's happening here, where the report you have of $250-some thousand per month. Okay. I would suggest you consider and look into, and I'll provide any information I can on the lawsuits that we did file, to whoever your previous consultant and actuaries were, and I understand you have hired a new one recently, correct? That you look into that to see if this county cannot recoup some of the monies of that $250,000 due to the fact that your consultant and actuaries missed the mark by that kind of money. It's just irresponsible. Okay, and I only suggest that for your edification. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would appreciate, from a standpoint of full disclosure, perhaps, that you might give us some information with regards to what the state law requires for a maintenance of effort in the departments that are requiring a maintenance of effort budget, so that the taxpayers who make less than $24,000 a year and still pay $8,000 a year for county employees' health insurance might recognize how much they're paying above what the state law requires for this extraordinary government service. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Move to adjourn.